It's been a hell of a year for video games, as well as for this channel, which I started all the way back in January now. I've played games that I hated, games that I loved, watched horrible movies, met some cool people, and had a great time all the way through. So I thought, what better way to ring in the new year than to make an arbitrary top whatever list of my favorite games of 2015. I'd crack out the eggnog, but my liver is shot, so I guess I'll just have to drink 10 times the amount of the non-alcoholic kind to compensate. So without further ado, let's... Number 7, Fallout 4. Anyone who knows me and knows of the Mr. Joy character's origins in Fallout 3 in New Vegas will know that I was looking forward to this game. A lot. And it disappointed me. A lot. Considering how I was glued to the game for a while after its launch though, to an unhealthy and worrying extent, I have to admit, it's a really good game and that value proposition is staggering. While I absolutely despise the new dialogue wheel, the fact that your protagonist is voiced, the forced origin story for your character, the huge abundance of essential NPCs, no karma system, no real motivation to have more than one character, and the fact that the game's graphics options are in a fucking external launcher in the year 2015, I was able to look past the game's flaws and see a huge amount of potential for Fallout 4. Modders, Bethesda, and hopefully Obsidian sometime should easily be able to tap into that potential in the future. Even though the game is certainly no New Vegas, it's still a pretty damn good ride. Exploring the Massachusetts Commonwealth is a lot of fun, and there's still new things I'm discovering each time I play. Another small complaint I have is how far into endurance you have to invest in order to have a decent meal.
I get awfully hungry sometimes.
Number 6, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Despite my many criticisms of the game's story, its business model, its often flatline attempt at eliciting an emotional response, the characters lacking charisma, and a drastic departure from the series as a whole, The Phantom Pain is an excellent stealth game in its own right. What do you mean that sounded too negative for a top 10 list? There's not even 10. The humor is mostly intact in the gameplay itself, and you're given many options and means of completing missions as violently or non-violently as you please. There aren't very many games where I can say that I took over an enemy base by using a water gun, but the Phantom Pain allows for that. It's also one of the few games with a dog companion as a feature that doesn't make me roll my eyes, if just because D-Dog is actually useful and not at all used for cheap emotional weight, or simply tacked on because it's the popular thing to do right now. There's a huge amount of content here, and the game is certainly worth it if you're at all into stealth games. It's one of the best I've played if we're talking about game mechanics alone. I feel I should warn people though that this game is kind of unfinished. It's missing its 3rd chapter, 51st mission, and seems to be missing key features like Camp Omega, but given the game's title, people will try and argue that it was stylistically designed to be that way. Sounds like a lazy excuse if you ask me. If you can't finish what you start, what's the point of even— oh, that's right. Number 5, Splatoon. This game was something I was extremely indifferent to when I first heard it announced, but as I found out more about it, got a chance to try it out, and saw some choice fan art featuring Callie and Marie, my mind was changed pretty fast. It's one of the best reasons to own a Wii U right now, and while some folks may not agree with the game's decision to omit voice chat, I can't imagine how many times "fuck rollers, goddamn squid-bagging piece of shit. I'm going to murder your entire family for beating me in a happy Nintendo game. You're a squid now, you're a kid now, get the fuck out of my game now." And other colorful phrases would be heard if it were included. So, whatever. Splatoon is fast-paced, it's stylish, and it's pretty unique for a multiplayer shooter. There's a lot of personality to this game, and it's surprisingly accessible even to people who are terrible at shooters like I am. It's also great to see a new Nintendo IP that stands out both from the crowd and from itself. I like Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Mario, Animal Crossing, and Mario as much as the next guy, but it's good to see something fresh for a change. Splatoon scratches the multiplayer shooter itch way more than this bare bones, overpriced, cynical, unbalanced, and regressive mess of fanboy wankery ever did. Count to 10, stop being so negative. This is a positive list. Number 4, Tales from the Borderlands. For as much as I love more mechanically heavy games, there's some times where I just want to relax with a good story. Telltale usually succeeds pretty well in this regard, with some exceptions of course, and some trappings of their established formula. When I heard they were going to be doing both a Game of Thrones and Borderlands game in the same year, I never thought in a million years that I'd end up preferring this one by far. To me, Borderlands has always been a huge mixed bag. This goes for gameplay, characters, story, and especially the humor. It's all just very hit or miss. Thankfully, Tales from the Borderlands surprised me in the best of ways. I actually laughed at quite a lot of scenes in this game, and I was genuinely invested the entire way through. It was exciting, the characters were likable, the voice acting was great, and I really have to admire this game's courage to ignore the main series characters' plot armor. Although I dare not spoil more than that. Also, I prefer the slick art style they chose in the Borderlands game to the half-assed oil painting look they were going for in Thrones. One could say that the contrast between the two is a pretty stark one. Tales from the Borderlands was also able to improve characters that I wasn't really fond of before, not by changing their personalities, but by building upon them and giving them more depth. I'd go so far as to say it's my favorite Borderlands thing so far, by a mile. This game also has a satisfying conclusion that doesn't leave you talking to your monitor, shaking your head, and asking Telltale how they had the audacity to end a 6-episode game on a cliffhanger. Oh, spoilers. Number 3, The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt. I actually only started playing this last month, after putting it off the whole year due to other games to play, work, getting addicted to clicker games, and promising myself that I'd play The Witcher 1 and 2 first before jumping in. I broke that promise, but I don't regret it for a moment. The Witcher 3 is a daunting game. It's massive in scope, it touches on some seriously dark topics, and there's a lot of morally gray choices you have to make, where the consequences aren't always initially clear. It's also very easy to die. I didn't know a lot about Geralt of Rivia going into the game, and I was pleasantly surprised to find that he was a daunting, badass monster hunter with dulled emotions, but also capable of humor, sarcasm, and awful puns. So if you take out badass, daunting, and humorous, you can see why I related to him so much. The Witcher 3 strikes a great balance for me, with plenty of grotesque monsters, horrific violence and dark themes, but also plenty of humor, likable characters, and a really beautiful fairy tale-esque world that feels lived in. The battle system is pretty good, the story is lengthy and not too predictable, the music is awesome, and the side quests are well realized and have some life to them, which is where a lot of these games fall painfully short. Even the Witcher contracts make you feel like a private eye for hire, solving mysteries, investigating crime scenes, and killing monsters along the way. The Witcher 3 is kind of an anomaly given how it's a massive, big-budget, AAA open-world RPG in a dark fantasy setting, and the third in the series no less, but it has relatively natural and well-written characters. It's also not afraid to use some, pretty crude terminology, which may seem off-putting, but it adds a layer of believability to the world. The developer CD Projekt Red has also been supporting the game with free DLC, including a New Game Plus mode, extra quests, and new hairstyles. There are also paid expansions which add a substantial amount to the game too, so, you know, just saying, Warner Brothers. Number 2, Hotline Miami 2, wrong number. Yeah, I know, people don't like this one as much as the first game, but I'm not people. While the first game may be better from a level design standpoint, and the wide variety of masks available on every level added to the replay value immensely, Wrong Number felt a lot more compelling to me. The world is just as grimy and unpleasant as it was the first time, but it feels all the more fleshed out and realized now that you're seeing it from so many different perspectives. From the relatively innocent Evan Wright, to the corrupt cop Manny Pardo, to the vigilante fans, and even the son of the first game's Russian mafia boss. You have characters that not only play very differently from each other, but evoke entirely different feelings while playing them. Playing as Evan is the closest thing to playing a hero the games will ever have, as he's the only character who uses non-lethal means to knock enemies out instead of killing them violently. Playing as Martin, on the other hand, is like playing a psychopath's power fantasy, breaking out of an interrogation room, killing dozens of police officers, and literally tearing someone's head off, spine and all. This one stage alone is more effective than all of Hatred combined. Remember that. And then there's the unnamed henchman, which is just tragic, really. You get the sense that while he's not at all innocent, he just wants a way out from his violent, horrible life, but doesn't really know how. The gameplay is just as awesome as ever, the soundtrack is amazing, and the art style is strikingly and appropriately ugly. That's a compliment in this case. Hotline Miami 2 is a game that's set in the 80s with a retro style and full of gaudy colors, but instead of playing that up for nostalgia or laughs, it tears all that glamour away and shows an unpleasant, depressing, miserable, and violent underbelly that something like GTA could never touch. As a huge fan of Vice City in particular, that says a lot coming from me. I may be in a minority here, but I really actually prefer this one to the original. It's easily worth the asking price, so go get it now. No hard cut. And now some honorable mentions. I should point out that I haven't played every game this year, and this list may have been pretty different were I to get around to some of these other ones. Here are some games that I feel deserve a bit of recognition, even though I didn't play them yet, didn't finish them yet, or felt they didn't quite make this list for other reasons. Pillars of Eternity sounds like something I could lose a ton of my life to, considering it was made by Obsidian. After Fallout 4 was decidedly not my top RPG of the year, I may have to pay this one a visit instead. Ori and the Blind Forest was a game I wanted to love from its trailer alone. I was even planning on doing an episode on it, but after playing through it I came to the conclusion that it was, pretty good I guess. I had a lot of fun with Hand of Fate earlier this year, but sort of lost track when I started working on the Hatred episode. Thanks a lot, Hatred, you ruined everything. I love Guilty Gear Xrd Sign, but it's a re-release, so it doesn't really count. Grand Theft Auto 5 PC version is a re-release, so it doesn't count. Plus, I prefer Saints Row anyway. Yeah, whatever, come at me. Aw shit, I still have to get Rocket League. I don't have a PS4, so I really can't speak for Bloodborne, but wow, I really want to play it. Frambeau is something I found around Halloween, and it's the kind of David Firth-inspired nightmare fuel that I absolutely adore. So I have this suggestion: watch Spoilsbury Toast Boy first. If you enjoyed that, get Frambeau. If not, well, I'm sorry you had to see that then. This may have been on my top 10, 7, whatever list, but I need to finish it still, so there's that. But without further ado, my number one favorite game of 2015 was Final Fantasy VI on Steam. Because a quick port of a mobile port of a game that's over 20 years old with a worse visual style than its Super NES original, a trailer that's so embarrassed of itself that it gradually shrinks the already small window where gameplay is shown, and the audacity to have a $20 price tag, what could possibly go wrong? The joke here is that Bubsy Twofer is a better deal than this cynical cash grab. Go fuck yourself, Square Enix. And now for my actual number one game of 2015, Undertale. Yeah, I'm gonna be that guy. I can already see comments about changing my sunglasses out for something like these. I didn't really go in expecting a lot from this game, to be honest. I'd played the demo a while back and figured, it's alright. I never gave much thought to it since. It just seemed like another retro RPG. Like with Freedom Planet, I got the full version of Undertale gifted to me by a friend, and like with Freedom Planet, it made me fall in love with video games again. It reminded me of what they were still capable of doing. From a pure mechanical standpoint, Undertale isn't that special. It's a pretty basic RPG with a shmup-style bullet-dodging combat system. You get into random battles, you talk to NPCs, and you build your XP, or do you? You don't have to kill anybody if you don't want to, and you can choose to talk your way out of fights, even boss battles. How violently you play will affect how the game plays, the ending, and how characters will interact with you. Speaking of which, the characters are great, with almost every single one of them growing on me. They're charming, funny, sad, complex, and temmy. Even minor NPCs or monsters you encounter that are only there for a scene or two are memorable. And part of that is owed to the fact that Undertale is such a tightly focused, short, and meaningful experience with a singular vision. You could finish all of Undertale in a day if you wanted to, and there's plenty of reason to come back for another try if you want to see how things play out differently. Because boy can they ever. The music in this game is not only great, but it plays a far bigger part than some people may give it credit for. Without it, there would be less humor, less charm, less personality, and at the risk of sounding like a creep who keeps a scrapbook of Ellen Page photos, less emotion. I don't want to spoil anything about Undertale. One particular ending, combined with the music, was one of the most powerful scenes in a game I'd witnessed in quite some time. It's right up there with Metal Gear Solid 3 and Walking Dead, maybe even more so for me. Undertale isn't a game for everyone, and some people may not be able to get into it the same way I did. That's part of why I loved it so much though, because it didn't try in vain to please everybody. It stuck to its guns, and it felt a lot more sincere because of it. I'll admit it's very easy to be cynical about this game given the rabid and vocal fandom the game has accrued, the rabid and vocal detractors the game has accrued, the hilarious amount of salt over a meaningless online poll, the hilarious amount of salt over a meaningless awards show, some guy's opinion on an even more meaningless top 7 list, and the fact that this game has somehow made skeleton porn a thing. But the amount of positivity in the game itself vastly outweighs all that extra baggage. Undertale was just such a breath of fresh air in 2015. In an era with so much importance placed on how many hours of playtime a game has, the size of its world, checklists of side activities to pad things out, and how many big-name voice actors you can get, Undertale stands out as a fun, charming, and simple story that you can finish in 1 or 2 sittings and have it stick with you for far more than 400 hours of this ever will.